I've been interviewing digital trailblazers and asking them who are the right people to lead digital transformation initiatives. Today on the show, I have Joanne Friedman. She's a CIO, an executive advisor, a lot of experience in Industry 4.0 and 5.0 and manufacturing. She is a pragmatic visioneer and design thinker, and she answers today for me what are her top 5 attributes of digital trailblazers and the right people to lead digital transformation initiatives. I'm Isaac Sacolick. I lead START CIO. We help organizations develop digital transformation core competencies. Welcome to episode 80 of the Driving Digital Standup, and I look forward to interviewing Joanne Friedman on her top 5 attributes of digital trailblazers. Hey, Joanne, it's so great to see you. We actually haven't met. We've tried to. We got to meet face to face at some point really, really soon. We'll find a way to do that. But you've been such a longtime friend, an advisor, a colleague, every title I can come up with. And you've been a huge supporter of my Coffee with Digital Trailblazers. Joanne, let everybody know a little bit about yourself because you do so many wonderful things.
Thank you. Well, I'm Joanne Friedman. I do a lot of empowerment of executives, I guess is the best way to phrase it. In my firm Connected Minds, we empower leaders to be digital, not do digital, which is a really big mindset shift. That's hard to say, actually, for where they're coming in from. They're usually looking for us to help them solve problems. So I do a lot of problem solving, particularly for folks in manufacturing, not only in the operational technology side, but really from the IT side. I am a former CIO, and so that's my bailiwick. Beyond that, we do a lot of um, development and thought leadership around value and how value is being portrayed in business through IT. We have interesting conversations and ideas with our clients around things like driving IT to a profit center as opposed to a cost center. And how can we do that through digital transformation? Or on the other side of the fence, how do we layer AIs together when we have AI for visual inspection and now we want to add predictive maintenance, or we want to put a third layer on and add ChatGTP? How do we do that? Those are complex questions and they're multifaceted. And so we like to look at things through a value lens because value connects all the facets together. And that's who I am. And I'm very happy to be supportive of your Coffee with Digital Trailblazers. And we always have very interesting discussions.
We do, and you're a big part of that success. I hope everybody here listening will think about joining us. We meet every Friday at 11 a.m. Eastern Time. I'll share the URL around that. But here's it. Joanne, you remember this. It was just a few months ago. We had an episode, and I asked the question, who are the right people to lead digital transformation initiatives? It was a little play off of chapter 8 in my book, Digital Trailblazer, where I'm walking down the street to one of my CIO jobs. I'm contemplating that question. What does the board, what does the leadership team mean when they say the right people? And that chapter is really a big chapter around diversity. But we did a whole conversation around it. And I regrouped with you, with Joe Puglisi, with Martin
Mhm.
Davis, with Tyler Johnson, and a whole bunch of others. And we ended up coming up with 50 different attributes. I organized them into 5 categories. And then what I've been doing is bring people like yourself on and say, okay, 50 is a lot. We're not going to find digital trailblazers with all 50 attributes. What do you think is most important? What do you think is really key for a digital trailblazer? And there isn't one right answer, but I'd love to hear your answer, Joanne. So let's start with leadership skills and mindset. And your answer for your most important attribute was vision painter and
Yep.
pragmatic visioneer. And I love this word visioneer, sort of a Disney play, but almost the opposite of it, from Imagineer to Visioneer. What do you mean by that,
Yeah.
and why is that so important?
Because what I've found in 7 or 8 years of really deep diving into Industry 4 and now Industry 5 and helping manufacturers change their business because it's business transformation before technology transformation is to understand that you need to look at the big picture and then reverse engineer it down to the details and then engineer it back up. So a pragmatic visioneer and in or a visioneer period is someone who imagines their future state. All transformation is future state. It's kind of like when you ask a child, what do you want to be when you grow up? Well, when they're 8, they want to be a firefighter. When they're 10, they want to be, I don't know, a programmer. When they're 15, they don't want to even have a conversation with you. And then when they're 20 and graduated from university, they have an idea that what they've just studied is not what they want for their career, but they understand the bigger picture and they know what they've gone through and they can apply the details and the skills they've learned to that big picture. So to me, the visioneering is really what are the outcomes you want to achieve as a digital business? And then it's closing the gap from where you are to how you're going to get there.
Excellent.
That's that's the kind of leadership I think most corporations would need.
Absolutely. And I think it was Joe who put Vision Painter on the list, but I really like the word pragmatic, right? We don't want, this fantasy world, right? We want something that is executable, that fits the boundaries of our organization, that's going to deliver incremental value, that's going to allow us to experiment. So I really like the word pragmatic. And then when I asked you about personal competencies, it really fits into this. You actually went a little off grid, which I allowed you to. I said, Joanne, I think you've been on like 60 of my episodes. Please, you earned the right to go off grid. And you said personal competencies. You think of ESkilled, empathetic, entrepreneurial, expert, and empowering. So you got to have all those, or that's a
Yes, you
okay.
Yeah, I think so. I use the term e-skilled, kind of a play off of or a portmanteau for what used to be T-skilled, right?
Mm,
I have heavy background in technology, but heavy background in business also. That's a lot of background. But how I put those two things together is what I think other people would say make me very valuable, and in some cases maybe not so valuable because you need to have a person who's empathetic. You need to have someone who has entrepreneurial leanings. Maybe they're not going to spin off a business within a business as an entrepreneur would, but they have the spirit of entrepreneurship. That's two of them. Then they have expertise and they have good experience. So, in other words, I guess I would wrap all these things up with the wrapper of empowerment because they take these skills, they take these personal traits, and they give back to other people. They lift them up and they support their team members and they support the things within the workforce. For example, in manufacturing, a frontline worker, they would be supportive of that person, which is why they would immediately have a value argument that we could talk about in terms of KPIs, but we could also bring them into the fold very easily through that individual who is not only entrepreneurial and caters to that little thread that everybody gets pulled on, but also the empath and the empathy that's required to say, I know your job is going to change. I know you don't like it, but if you bear with me, you'll see it's going to be that much better later on. That's an e-skilled individual. I think you're an e-skilled individual. I think a few of our cohorts that we speak with regularly are also e-skilled.
I think we're going
And
to have to do a topic on how do you develop your e-skills because it's you just don't jump in and become an expert or become entrepreneurial or even learn what it means to be empathetic. But what I really like about these is when you put two of these words together, right? Now you start getting into balancing, right? I'm an expert, but I also show empathy as being an expert, right? I'm not, condescending. I'm not obnoxious with my with the level of understanding that I have around a topic. I'm sharing. I'm a teacher around it. So there's a lot of like gray areas between these words that when you put them together really start sounding like out a real rounded individual. Let's jump into transformation. Okay.
mm-hmm.
And I think when you told me this was going to be your attribute, it didn't surprise me because I think all endpoints for you during the coffee hour when we talk about transformation lead to outcomes, right? And, I'm going to tee off this question for you this way. We did a talk a few weeks ago about developing business acumen. I just
Yep.
published that article on InfoWorld just this week. They actually wanted to change the title and just call it Learn About Business. And I'm like, well, there's a slight nuance between learning about business and developing business acumen. Slight difference between those two. So please leave the article talking about business acumen. You're going one step further, right? You're telling a digital trailblazer that you need business acumen so you can understand how to pitch an idea, deliver, run change management, and actually get me to an outcome, right?
Right. Yes. And I'm saying that because more often than not, especially younger folk, not that you or I are that old, but the Gen Zs, for example, don't necessarily grasp that experience plus expertise plus the stuff that you absorb by osmosis, by learning about different parts of the business, having different experiences is what develops your acumen. You need to have a certain foundation of business acumen in order to understand what the requirements of the business are that would go and support that higher level objective, that corporate strategy. So, what do you want to be when you grow up stuff? And you secondarily need to understand how to translate the technical issues and the complexity of the technical issues in a way that will resonate with your audience, whether it's a frontline worker in a manufacturing plant, or it's a mid-level manager in IT, or it's a person that is in a business unit who's moved from a different business unit and now they don't know which way is up, right? Their whole landscape has changed. If you don't have a bit of a foundation in acumen, which is your experience, your expertise, a certain amount of empathy, a certain amount of being empowered or mentored by someone else, back to my ESkilled kind of stuff, you're never going to develop the skills as you try and aspire to climb the corporate ladder. Each level that you move up, or even if you move laterally, you take all that experience, you take all that tacit and implicit knowledge, and you leverage it going forward. Well, how to leverage it is part of learning business acumen. And that's really where the rubber hits the road for digital transformation teams. They need to have that acumen.
An acumen, and then to be able to project, right? To say, I think there's an opportunity here. I think I can solve a problem over here. I think we can become more efficient or improve quality here. And then even take it to that next level and say, not just describe it, but measure it, and understand what that value looks like when it's measured. It takes all that knowledge to be built up on top of the technical skills. But I want to switch with
Exactly.
you, Joanne. Joanne, I have to go here with you because, I work with lots of CIOs and CDOs, and, we were talking to our digital trailblazers who are coming up the ranks. I think it's really
Mhm.
important to develop acumen, to develop outcomes, outcome driven when you're pitching things. But when you talked about people skills, you brought in being an influencer and a motivator. And I want you to answer this question from the vantage point of working with CIOs, working with boards, right?
Sure.
Changing mindsets about things. This is not something you read in a book. I'm sorry. You could read my book, but you're going to have to go practice how to influence a board right now. And you're going to make a lot of mistakes doing that. You're going to have to practice how to influence an executive group or even a CIO when they have 150 things on their mind and you're only focused on three of them at most, and you're trying to influence an investment or a priority or just getting the right people on your team or to address an issue. um, Influencer and
How do I
motivator,
do that?
how do you do that? Give everybody one good tip around how to do that.
Storytelling. I know my audience. I learn my audience. I learn as much as I can conceivably learn in a short period of time or even over time about the passions, interests, ideas, books that have been read, things that have transpired in people's lives. And I draw upon it by relating a story that gives them the message that motivates or influences their decision making. Because regardless of, you can be the most pragmatic or hard-headed person in the world, but decisions are made subconsciously by your emotions long before they come out of your mouth as it's black or it's white. That's the way it works. So by understanding that people make decisions based on emotions and certain words resonate with them, I have developed my own set of storytelling, and Isaac is my witness because he's heard many of them. But you imbue your message with a little bit of humor, but personality related to the individual who you're trying to influence or motivate, and you empower them to make the decision that you want. And does that work every time? No. But I would say on an 80-20 rule, 80% of the time it does, because they can quickly make the connection between the decision you want them to make and the personal human experience that you've just given them.
Joanne, you're an exceptional storyteller. I think at every coffee hour, there's probably two or three that you're sharing. If you're watching this video, please join our coffee hour. You're going to get two or three examples from Joanne every single week. And then you're going to learn something new. And I will tell you, this is fifth area of digital. Um, I've worked with a lot of user experience folks. I've worked with a lot of designers. I probably learned more about design thinking and human engineering from you during our coffee hours, straight up. Just putting it all together in the context of why is it important for transformation? And if you're not a user experience specialist, how do you understand? How do you participate in design thinking? Um, why is it so important to you?
It's important because, well, partially because of for the same reasons as the storytelling, right? When you're influencing or you're empowering or motivating. But it's absolutely critical because more often than not, technical debt, lack of cooperation or buy-in, heart share, as you know me to call it, all come to be problems under change management because two things are awry. One, your timing is absolutely horrendous. You've waited too long in the transformation process. People now have a negative feeling going into it. That's one area. And the other area is time is something that you cut out of process to give back to people. It's not, I'm going to do a value stream analysis to cut every bit of wasted time out of every process and then try and make people more productive with it. I've taken that time away so they can be more creative, so they can be more innovative, so they can have the time to experiment and drive things forward. So human-centered design brings the person into the overall system design for IT folk who are very familiar with that term, and for business folk who are not. When you design software or you design an overall system to provide a capability to an organization, it's not all about the development of a function. It's about how people are using it. And use is not something like a UI, like it's a pretty graphical interface. It's how it's getting their job done for them with less friction, with lower cost, with lower time, and making it a more enjoyable experience. It's also not creating another silo with technical debt because all of what's happening in the background, especially in a no code or low code situation, is actually feeding other systems. You're just not seeing it. So human centered means make my life easier as you're designing the overall system. So in transformation, I say to a lot of people, especially in Industry 4, you can measure the OEE metric, the operational efficiency of a machine. You can't do that of a human being because we are human after all.
How does
And
my program impact people? How do I make
there
people's
you go.
lives easier? I mean, I think that's a great closing for your five digital trailblazer attributes. They're all human centric. You started with pragmatic visioneer, right? Paint a really big, bold picture. You talked about the personal competencies, of the digital trailblazer. They're ESkilled, they're empathetic, entrepreneurial, expert, and empowering. But then, when it comes to pitching their idea, when they're formulating what they want to go after, they're outcome driven, and they have the relationships and the storytelling acumen to influence and motivate decisions. And then ultimately, when they think about actually planning and delivering their work, they're human centric, design thinking, they're empathetic in what they're building. And that's most important because everything that we're doing in transformation is impacting the people that we work with and impacting our customers. Joanne, it's been fantastic talking to you about who are the right people to lead digital transformation efforts and the attributes of digital trailblazers. Is there anything else you want to leave with the group?
Two things. One is you can measure all of this. It's not just the pragmatic visioneer in me coming out to tell you these things. They're all measurable. And the more you look at this side of the equation, the more you realize that digital transformation is really a two-sided coin. On one side, you have operational efficiency that you're trying to go after, and on the other side, you have growth and expansion. And innovation plays in the middle. But on either side, you're going to accomplish your goal and you can measure all of these things.
Wonderful way to end. Thank you so much, Joanne, for
Thank
joining
you.
me on the Driving Digital Stand-Up. Please do subscribe to our channel, and please visit us at the Coffee with Digital Trailblazers. We meet every Friday at 11 a.m. Eastern Time. Joanne and I are all out there at every single one of them, pretty much. I'm going to show her that in a few seconds. So we'll see you there, and enjoy this episode. Go see the other episodes with Joe Puglisi, Martin Davis, Tyler Johnson, and again, see you at the coffee hour. Have a great day.